Thank you. So let me just kind of like review since I just started recording. So what I did was I have this hard-coded data or this hard-coded data in my UI. And so I have to ask myself the question now, well, I need to think how do I want this, how would this data look if I wanted to loop over it and create this UI? And what I kind of came up with is I would have an array of objects. Let's see if I can get rid of this. And this is actually even like when I hover over this, it's giving me some nice like highlighting about what this is. I have like an agent name, which is a string. I have an email, and then I have properties, which is an array of objects, which have price, beds, bass, square foot, street, city, and zip. So this is one object in this data array. So I can convert this object into this section right here. Here's another object that I could create this thing with. All right, so let's do this. Let's take our, let's do like a render data function, just so we can do this in outside of here. Okay, so I need to find that. So notice that this app is an arrow function with a parenthesis. So this is implicitly returning this. So I need to like wrap this whole thing in curly brackets. And then I need to say return, because I want to come in here and add some code. So I can't implicitly return the JSX. So I have to do that little change. So I make a render data function. Refresh. There we go. So I'm going to take my data. Here it is right there. It's just that array. Let's maybe just call this like agent properties, right? That's kind of what we called it, I think, in my app. That's really what that is. Let's take my agent properties and let's map over it. So this is really the first object that I'm going through is really just an agent. And what I want to return here is the list. I want it like it's one of these things. I want to like create one list item that has the agent name, the email, and then a table. So let's kind of just copy this. I think that the more you do this in steps, I think the easier it's going to be. Now we're getting into all sorts of lovely, like I'm missing, like forgot the copyright. This is not easy. This is like, this can be very hard to do. All right, render data. I'm going to, and I'm also going to do like a little break right here, HR. Okay. Let's do a couple of these just so we can see, like, I'm not really rendering this data because, well, I forgot to return this map function. Cool. So I'm doing my agent properties.map. I'm mapping over them. I'm not really using that agent information. Okay, let's do that. Agent.name. Right? or agent name. I guess I called it agent name. Okay. Maybe I'm going to switch this to name. That works. I can switch this here. I'm just making this up anyway. Can just kind of change those. Sweet. Agent 1 and agent 2. Perfect. Now let's grab the agent.email. Boom. You see what I'm doing? I'm now using this hard code, or like this data structure to now start rendering the UI. The tables are still hard coded. Okay, well, let's fix that part. Well, I don't want to like hard code the table row. What I want to do is go through each of the properties and map over the properties and create this. So I'm going to do right here an agent.properties.map. Go through each property. And I want to return this table row. What don't you like about this? Oh. Close. Okay, what am I forgetting now? Okay, let's try this again. So maybe here I'll just create this because sometimes this is functions can be nice to just break this up, the syntax there. So I'm going to do render row. So okay, let's make this function const render rows. Take this table body. So this is going to do. Now this needs some like that array of properties. So I'm going to pass this function agent.properties. Okay. So now this function can take properties. Now this can return properties.map. Go through each property, return this table row. Ooh, I'm getting close. I'm going through each. I'm passing the properties, going through each of them, rendering. I'm just hard coding this now, but now I don't want to hard code it. I actually want to use the property data. So now I can do p.price. This one's going to be p.beds. p.baths. P dot, I forgot which this one is square foot. We have P dot street. P dot city. And P dot zip. See, now I changed the data in here. See, it's now rendering. It's going through all of this data and it's rendering it. Okay. I can get rid of this. So now I can just, I can get rid of the hard coded stuff. this group. So let me just ask you this: when you looked at this this UI, like how many of you thought it would be this hard to create this? This is hard, right?
Yeah.
We're not
Some
even
decent amount of work to
it. Okay. And this is like, I think it's been hard for me to explain what I mean by getting the data to look like where you can like render over it, like map over it. So this is what I mean. Like, this is how I can create this data, or like, this is how I want the data to look so I can map over it to create the UI. How that would work with like React Bootstrap. Like if I want to create this UI, I want my data to look like this, where it's an object with name and email, and then it has this nested properties array that are objects. Because if it looks like this, then I can go ahead and create this UI. Cool. So I think this now would maybe be a good time to actually, well, there's one more thing we need to do. That's another like kind of pain. I could kind of like throw this into my app at this point. So then let's just do that. Let's come in here, const agent properties. Throw this inside of my app. And then take all of this stuff. I'm going to take these two functions first, copy those into here, into my available. So just, and another nice thing about maybe having these as functions is I can just more easily copy and paste them into my component. Okay. And now I want to try, well, there's going to be a couple things I need to do. I need to import. Well, I can just copy the imports. I'll copying the imports from here. I don't need this batch for now. Cool. And then now I can finally try to get this working. So I can do my list group. Now this one I kind of like, I do need, like I do have this agent property state. So, and then that, so I have this is where this gets also confused. Like I need to now take this, what I have in Sandbox, make it work in my VS Code. So I have this agent properties, so that's defined. But it's going to break pretty quick, and we'll see why. Let's just go to like localhost 3000 available. Wait, how's that working? Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. That's working. I'm going to call this agent properties. I have two consts. I was kind of expecting an error because I have two agent properties consts, but this looks like this one's overwriting it. I'm going to call this agent properties dummy. I'm going to use this right here, just so this is more clear. Cool. So I now have this in my UI. Okay. But let's look at a big problem we have. So if I look at my, so this was the stuff I did from, and maybe I should call this agent properties from Sandbox, just so we can be clear which is which. Like, and then I'll do like dummy. I don't really care that this is kind of spelled weird, but okay. So I have this dummy agent properties from my Sandbox that I'm mapping over. And that's working. But then I also have this data down here, and I'm going to just call this, let's call this agent. Let's just do this agent property state. And then actually, I'll just do both of them so we can see them both. So this is a horrible variable name, but so here's my dummy agent property from the Sandbox. This was the thing I hard coded in Code Sandbox so we could create these nice little list of tables. But there's my agent properties state. These are not the same, right?
No.
Like, and by that I also mean like they don't like they don't have the same like structure. Like with my dummy agents from Sandbox, like this is organized by agent, where like an agent's only in here once. Like the name of an agent is only in here once. The email of an agent's only in here once. But how I'm getting it back from my database, like, you know, this agent1gmail.com is in here twice and could be in there multiple times. So this is when we're looking at like the Trello board or like this normalizing step. So we have our data from our from our Axios call, how the API is giving us back the data. But then we also have the data, how we kind of figured it out, how we want it to do in Code Sandbox, and they don't match. So we need to do this step now of taking our API, our data from the API call and morphing it into the data that goes into our UI. At a high level, like, does that make sense? It's not so much that you care about this specific example, but, and you kind of maybe see why we're doing this, or like, if you're confused, like, I'm sure there's confusion right now, like, ask some questions.
Oh. Well, I thought you were doing it just to populate in the table, are you doing it for a different reason?
Like, I guess what I'm asking, like, didn't this used to be so easy just to like get the data from the database and then render it?
Yeah.
Like, why is this getting so much more complicated?
We didn't care about how it looked. We just cared about displaying it.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, we didn't care so much about how it looked.
There's another reason because we're getting like duplicate data now.
Yeah, that's definitely another reason, is because now like the way our data is coming back, we're getting some duplicate data. Like, where is it? The way we're getting this back, we're getting like the agent name and email in here a couple times. Now, I don't want to display that multiple times. So there's not this, there's not like a match. There's never like before this, there was never a case where like our data really wasn't formatted in an easy way to, convert it into a table. You could have made like in your past projects, you could have gotten back the data and you could have made it look nice. You could have like thrown it in the table or in a group of cards. And you wouldn't have to have done this step. And sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do. I think one question I would maybe ask is, why doesn't our database just send back the data like this? That could be a good question. Why not? And we could make an API call that does that. Like we could go to the back end and make an API call, like figure it out and do it like this. But that's maybe not how your company works. I know I can use my like specific example at Teleperformance, because that was like one of the questions I had. It was like, dude, why are you making this such a pain for me? Like, why are you giving me the data back like this instead of like this? And they had their reasons. It was like, well, this is actually much more like there's much more you can do with this in this format. It's actually easier to work with this. This is like more flexible. This is kind of like narrowing you down, but I don't know. It's part of this, like why I'm doing it in this way as this lecture is just so I can get this practice. So when it comes to like your homework, or like, I would say not this, I would say for this homework, maybe try doing it kind of similar. But when it comes to your like personal projects or your hackathon project or your portfolio project, you could make the decision, hey, let's just send back the data like this. And you could figure out how on the back end to do it.
If it's not too complicated to kind of sum up, can you kind of sum up why one way is better than the other of these two ways? Is that like just kind of sum it up? Can you do that?
Well, one thing that's nice about this, if I look at one of these, like, so this is how the data is giving me this back. This really does give me, like, one of these things is like information about one of the properties. Like I have all the information I have about my properties. Like technically, I think this call would give us back all the data from our database, kind of grouped by property. Now, so if I take one object, I'm like, okay, what's the agent for that property? What's the email for the property? I can like figure that out. This becomes like a little nested. So when I look at this property, when I look at one object, it's by agent, and then like I have to go in and like drill down for the property information. It's something to do with like it being what they would say flat. There's not like these nested objects inside of objects or arrays inside of arrays. Once again, it's for a company like Teleperformance, where like they had just a ton of data. It's kind of like you could think of one of these things. It's just like it's got all the information in this one thing. Like, this one thing has like the information in these two, like they're the same information. Like it's not like in the information's different. They're just organized different. And this one is just going to have like all the pieces of it. Like, so you can take one object and you can know everything about it. Here, if you take one object, it's kind of like, well, I know everything about an agent, which is a little more high level than the property is like the lowest level. Doesn't really.
What part of the code is bringing back which part again? Which one's returning which one in the code?
Okay, so this is from this agent property state. I could also say like, you know, we're getting this from the back end. Let's actually just make this work just to, like I'll stop doing this like where it's hard coded. Let's just get this back from the back end. Right. There's our data from the back end. Cool. And here's our data from the sandbox. So this one's like, you know, hard coded. And this one's actual, like the real data.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So say we were working with the backend data table only, not the table, but the whatever it gave you back, like that second one down. Can't you on the front end just sort of select and exclude what kind of information you want to display? And then format a table based on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this data and convert it to this data. And you could think,
do you have to, I guess you have to convert the data, but I'm just kind of wondering why, because I thought you could just sort of like pick and choose when you create your front end what like properties you wanted to display.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. You can do that. Like, but with this, the question is, with this data, this array of objects, how do you create this UI? The way I'm showing is not the only way you could do it. I think it's easiest to figure out how you want your data to look to match the UI, and then figure out how to get your data that you get from your database to that state.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot we could do with this data. It's like, I could create a table, and this is part of the reason why this format is better. Another reason, like, it's, let's say, because this makes sense when I want to like order stuff by agents, but what if I wanted to like order stuff by like city? Like, this would be pretty hard to go through. Like if the data looked like this, that would be like hard to go through and like try to like organize stuff by city, because you'd be doing all like these weird little internested loops. It'd be a pain. Since this is flat, it makes it easy to be like, okay, yeah, let's just group all our properties. Instead of by agent, let's do it by city. Oh, you want to do it by zip? Okay, that's easy. And then that way I don't have to go make all these different backend calls. It's like, dude, here you go. Here's just this flat data that you can it's going to be the easiest way to manipulate it on the front end than getting it back in a like more special case. Like this is more special, it's more like structured than this. But yeah, I think kind of what you're saying, Steve, is like, yeah, I can come through and like, there's so many things I could do with this data. We just want to do this. We could actually, and we're not going to do it, but like, this could be the only API call we need for this whole homework assignment, probably. And just do everything on the front end with this data.
Yeah, that's I figured that there was a way to do that. That's the kind of the point I was making. I don't know if that's easier or if it's easier to create like a custom API call and then format the data how you want it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because with this, the way we're getting back this data, it's like, okay, give me all the zip codes that have, 2 bathrooms and are less than $50,000 or $500,000. I can do that with this. I could do it with this one, but it probably gets a little harder. But
Yeah.
because yeah, it's all like the same information is there. It's just different, formatted differently.
This is where SQL is going to come in, huh?
Well, no, this is where JavaScript's going to come in. We've done the SQL. The SQL came in because we had 3 different tables. The SQL came in this available method where we're joining all of that stuff from all of our different tables.
Oh, okay.
To get back this, and this is something we haven't done. It's like, man, we're getting back data from multiple different tables. And like this has property information, it has agent information, and it has address information. And so, yeah, we can now do so much with this data. So yeah, it's like I said, I'll just keep coming back. When we look at this like little page, it looks pretty simple, but there's so much going on behind the scenes. Okay. The one thing we don't include in here is there's no like buyer information. Like we don't do any of the buyer information stuff. So we could not do like the find homes feature with this API call because we don't have any buyer information. But and I'm glad we're spending time on this because I really want to hit this home. Like what we're doing is, so we're going to get back the data like this, which is a little more, I'd say it's a little more easy to work with, and it's a little more easy to like convert this into different special use cases. So then that way we don't, and I think that was like when that's their perspective at Teleperformance. It's like, we're going to give you like we're going to have I mean, they had a lot of API calls, but they gave you back data in like a pretty generic format. And then it's like, well, you can do a lot with this data on the front end. Instead of having a whole bunch of specific, backend calls that might have been a little harder to work with. So for this case, we want to take this data and now convert it into this data because we can take this data and convert it into this UI. Does that flow make sense now?
Yeah, somewhat.
And this is like, when we get to charting libraries are definitely going to be like, it's going to be very rare you're going to get your data back in a way that's going to go nice with the chart library. Like you're going to have to do this step of converting it into the way the chart library wants it. So now we have a good old fashioned brain teaser. So let me, where's my VS Code? Okay. Now for this part, and I should throw this in like the Trello card. This, like we did in the Sandbox with the UI, this should probably be done in like a separate file. Especially when you're, I think when you get more comfortable, like you don't have to do this, but this is not an easy problem right here. Like this is a kind of, mid-level, well, it's gonna be like a challenging brain teaser. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna do like a demo.js. And let me get this data, okay. I'm gonna take this dummy agent properties. This in here. I'm going to say const normalize. I'm going to write a function. Let's call it normalized data. I don't know what to call it. Okay. So this function is going to take dummy agents properties. Now remember, I'm going to actually need to call it here. Okay. So I'm just setting this up so I can like try to figure out how to do this. So I want this function to go from array of objects that look like this to array objects that look like this. We had name. I could just copy this from here. Copy one of these people. I kind of think just because we're running low on time, maybe I kind of just give us a solution and then like I just kind of want to copy and paste this solution and we can kind of go over it instead of typing it out. And then during project time, you can maybe look at it. So let me just find it. And like I said, this would be one where there'd be a couple different options, but let's maybe just kind of type it out. Okay. Or like I kind of want to think about it in steps. So let's maybe do something like this. Maybe I want to grab all unique agents because I think that's one of the first problems I see is I'm going to have duplicate agents in here. I want to get rid of them and I only want to grab the duplicate or the unique agents. Maybe for now we could just try running it and see if it works. Simple test. So I'm going to do a demo or node demo.js. Cool. And I will Slack this out. So if you want to like follow along. Okay. So first, and like, yeah, once we're just breaking down these problems into smaller problems into smaller problems. Like I'm going down the rabbit hole. Right now, I want to just grab all unique agents from the way we're getting back our database. So notice like, here's my dummy agent properties. This is how it's actually going to look. Like, you know, I could have multiple agents, right? So let's just do something like this. Let's just grab all the agents. Let's just maybe start this out by grabbing all agent IDs. Sometimes the way you figure these out is you just kind of like start to figure out how to get stuff. Like, how do we just grab all the agent IDs? So let's do a let agents equal dummy agent.properties. I'm going to map over these. I'm going to go to range like agent property and return the agent property dot agent underscore ID. Small steps is going to be your friend here. Cool. Now I have an array of just the IDs. Cool. Then you could be like, how do I get unique items? And then you know, maybe you get stuck. Like, how do you get all the unique things? Well, go to Google, get unique items in array in JavaScript. See, I've Googled this many times. Then you might learn some new stuff. You're like, oh, you can use a spread operator and do a new set. What? Then, you know, I would say as you go through, like, maybe just don't like copy and paste. Maybe just try to figure out, hey, okay, does this work? Like, go try this out in, like, you can just open up your inspect element and open up a console here. Like, this is where you can like really learn some stuff about JavaScript. Okay, so we have this array that has 1, 1, 2. Actually, that's pretty close to what we had. So it looks like I can do a ... new set. Okay. 1, 2. Cool. And you could maybe be like, oh, what's this new set? Like, what's a set? You could go look at sets, and then you'd be like, oh, set's a data structure. And set, I can actually just, you know, give it some numbers or give it an array. And it looks like if I give it an array, but then if I have duplicates in here, I need to close that out. It removes the duplicates.
That's awesome.
So I could store that to a variable X. So X is not, it's not an array, it's a set. It's a different type of data structure. But it looks like I can spread out over a set, and that converts it to an array. So boom, there we go. So I could map over my agents, and then I could do something like let unique IDs equal, you know, and then I could do that thing where I do a new set, spread out over agents. And I could console log unique IDs. Cool. Because now I have some, you know, unique IDs. So I've kind of solved, how do I grab just the unique things? Cool. Now I have that. Well, now I can go do like I can go map through my unique IDs. Go through each like unique ID. And now maybe I can go find like each property. Now this is where you get like a little, like let's go find like all of the properties for each given agent. So I'm going to say, hey, let properties, this is actually just going to be my dummy agents dot filter. So I'm going to go back through my dummy agents. I'm going to filter where this unique ID equals, and actually, sorry, I need to, once again, go through each agent property here, where the agent property dot agent underscore ID equals that. And I could, I don't know, just throw this into X. Well, we're mapping over them. So I'm gonna, for now, I'm just gonna return properties. All right, I'm getting a little, so there's the properties. Let's do this. Let's say I want to just get the name. So I'm going to do something a little tricky here. I'm just going to assume the first thing in this property thing I found, like, I'm just going to grab the first and last name from that first property. And that's going to be my agent data. So I can just destructure. Let's just say, well, let's do this. Let's just do first name. I'm going to structure this first name equals properties at 0. Agent name first property. I'm going to start returning this like this. I'm going to do name. It's going to be first name. Properties is going to be properties. This might help show what I'm doing. So now I have an array where I have the name, that's agent 1, name, agent 2, properties. That's going to be the properties, these are going to be the properties that belong to agent. Right, and just to show you, I could add, let's just add one more property for, this agent 1. And run this. See, now my agent 1 has 3 properties. My agent 2 has 2 properties. Because I go find all the unique IDs of the agents, and then I'm mapping over them. So then I go find the properties for that given agent, because I'm filtering over them by that unique ID. And then I'm going to grab that first property from those filtered properties to grab the name. I got also grab the last name. And now have the name be the first name and just interpolate this. Sign last name. Oh, I need to close that tick. Let's make these like a little more realistic. So this can be, well, actually, I'm gonna have to change all those names though. But that's the agent's first name is Agent 1 Yo. Not the best names, but we're getting there. We also want the email. Okay, well now I just need to pull the email as well off of that property. Throw that in my return of this map. Email. I could also let's maybe just leave it like this. There could be like, I'm just gonna throw this in then. Yeah, let's just leave it like this for now. I think there's more we could do. And if you look in the Neo notes, there's a little more, but I think this is enough to get this working. So, and this will just keep it a little simpler. Okay. So then instead of logging X, let's just have this, well, actually we can just leave it like this. So now I have this normalize function. And once again, by throwing this into a different file and testing it, I think this definitely makes it easier to do this one more difficult chunk of work. But now I can take this normalized data function, throw it into this available function. And now I kind of got to like figure out where to do this. So there's that normalized data. And I'm just going to call this, let's maybe call this raw agent properties. Just might help with like some of these names. Okay, so here's my normalized data function. Any idea where you think I might want to throw this or use this? I'm thinking right here, right when I get back my response, we normalize data. So we get back the data from our API, and then we're going to call this normalized data. And I'm going to send this res.data. Let's store this to a variable called normalized. And I don't know, maybe I want to call it like normalized agents properties or something. Sure. And then I can set my properties to that. One thing I need to do with this function though, is I need to return this, that X. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't call that agent. Maybe I should rename this to be like agent properties or something. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this error handling too. We're just going to assume our API is working. I'm also I think we're also at the point where I'm done with this dummy data. So I'm actually just going to get rid of all this dummy data. It served its purpose, but now let's just actually get this hooked up and working with our actual API. And this can be another place where like some bugs are going to be added. Okay. So let's look at that. Dummy agent properties from sandbox not defined. Okay, that's good. I don't want to use that anymore. So let's go ahead and remove that. Just gonna get rid of all of this stuff. That was just for debugging. I just want this to be a nice looking page. Did I not save that? Refresh. Line 40 of available. Actually, let me remove this. Okay. Line 40. Okay, so now we don't want to map over this dummy data. Now we're actually going to map over our state. Man, magic. It's working.
I love it. Complicated but cool.
Most exciting part.
There's one thing that looks a little like the streets off. So that
What does it look like?
it's not there.
Oh,
So why is my street not there?
did you call it address maybe instead of street?
Oh, did I? I might have.
Oh,
No, I thought I called it. I could go look at my schema.
The address was the has one, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was street, but yeah, it's street. So it's in there. For some reason, my street, did I change my? So there's a couple places this could be coming from. Do I even give it back? So I go to my SQL call. I don't think I'm giving it in my SQL call. So I wasn't like selecting the street from my SQL call. So that was that it. Let's refresh. That was it.
How did it know to skip that spot though? Because it still said street.
Well, so yeah, with my how I did my UI. So and this is how I'd have to do a table. Like the table, I have to hard code these fields because those are like the table headers. Like I'm hard coding those, and I'm using street. And when I did p dot street, it was just null, so it wasn't showing anything. So that's how it knew to do street, is because I.
Oh, but I was saying because it skipped that block because all those were null.
Yeah,
I
so
just-
it was just the same as like, yeah, throwing, that just would have been like null. Because yeah, that doesn't have, it didn't have it because it wasn't getting it back from the back end. Cool. So yeah, just, and let me push this up. So I would test this. This looks like it's working. We're going to get add dot get commit dash m available. Okay, and then get push origin fe available. Pull request. I'm just going to do this like really quickly just so it's on master. Merge. Cool. So that is now on the master branch. And if I go back to Trello, that being QA and that be done. So when I just kind of want to review these steps now that we've gone through them. I think this is why like I've broken this up into this many steps, like doing the React router, getting the data, figuring out how to do the UI with just code sandbox, normalize the data. This is sometimes you don't always have to do this, but we saw now there's going to be maybe sometime this mismatch between these two things. And then actually the step 5 is actually use the data for the UI in our project. This is like kind of, combining everything. Like these 3 steps, like the sandbox, the normalize, and those are kind of hard steps, right? It's not easy. But I think if you were not to break it up like this, you would just probably just get stuck and just not be able to do it. But this, I think by doing it this way, it can give you, it helps break those down into like simpler problems. And yeah, now, like, as far as lecture goes, like we didn't even get to these today. And that's usually, I kind of like generally like kind of go along with you and overestimate what we can get done. Because I think when you first see this, you don't see how complex it is. Because you look at it and like, well, this doesn't even look that cool anyway, but it looks decent. And there's actually a lot of useful information here. Agents, properties. We throw a couple images on here and like, we're getting a pretty good app. Cool.
I'm proud of it, and I didn't even do it.
Yeah, this lecture is hard, but it's kind of cool because it's really like, yeah, we're doing so much. It's like really combining like all the things. So cool. Well, let's take lunch. Let's come back at 2:10.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank-
Thank you.
Adios.